Hey, sports fans, it's your favorite podcast of the week, Socialing the Distance. We're with Devon Allen. He is a two-time Olympian at the 110-meter hurdles, set a PB of 12.99 at the end of the season, has competed in 2 world championships, and a 3-time U.S. champion. I think I got that right, Devon. Good to see you.
Hey, how's it going, Larry? Close.
Great.
Close. I'm 4-time U.S. because I won an indoor championship too.
Yes, I didn't put the indoor. My apologies. Cool.
That's okay.
I got to see you indoors this season. And how many times did you compete indoors?
I think I ran 3 meets before USA, so I ran 5 races total.
Do you like competing indoors?
It's okay. Usually I use the indoors to kind of work on some things that I think I struggled with the last season. And that's usually my start. I went from 8 steps to 7 steps. My last meet before indoor champs. So, I decided to make that transition and kind of commit to it, which, maybe could have led to me not running as fast as I had wanted to at USA's, but, it's going to be a learning curve. So, and I understand that. So I'm pretty excited about the opportunity and what I think I can accomplish outdoors. What
are your plans about opening outdoors?
My plan is to open up next weekend, Mount Sac.
Cool. Awesome. I love Mount Sac. It's the new facility looks fantastic, and it should be pretty good conditions. So you're in Annapolis, and you are being coached by Jamie Cook, who is your coach at Oregon.
Yes, correct.
And he's now the head coach, you said, at Navy. A fine institution. I have family members who, one was a submariner, and a couple others were on tenders and stuff like that too. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is really awesome. I think too, I'm helping coach here. I'm a volunteer assistant coach as well. So I help with the sprints and the hurdles and getting to work with the athletes, the caliber we have at the Naval Academy, and the people, the athletes themselves as people are just really, really special as well, which is a pleasure to work with, which is awesome.
As I'm going to put your coach hat on for a minute, I want to ask you a couple of things because we have a lot of high school coaches that watch this. If you were talking to a room full of high school coaches, what's the biggest mistake you tell them to watch for with young hurdlers?
Biggest mistake I see. It's not really a mistake. It's a good problem to have in terms of like mental, what you're thinking about as a hurdler, being super aggressive. It's super important to be aggressive, but I think some young hurdlers are so aggressive that they rush the lead leg down before the trail leg's ready to sprint. So, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm trying to get my trail leg down faster. Yeah, it's important, to just speed that overall rotation up, but it's also important to have your lead leg hit the ground when your trail leg is ready to go, right? You don't want to be on the ground and then waiting for your trail leg. You want to be in the air, trail leg ready to go, then hit the ground so you can move as opposed to waiting for your leg to move. So a lot of young hurdlers, try to rush that lead leg down. And I say, hey, be patient. Gravity is going to happen. Gravity is gravity. Once you're in the air, there's a certain amount of time you're going to be in the air. So, as long as you don't rush that and you're in a good position to sprint off the hurdle, you're going to be in a good position overall as a hurdler.
Do you like coaching?
I do. Actually coaching has helped me as an athlete as well because, the cues that my coach gives me, sometimes I have a hard time understanding and maybe visualizing what it looks like. And, when you coach, you try to give cues either similar or, your own cues that like, hey, this is what I want it to look like. So you kind of understand, like, you learn a little bit more of that communication between athlete and coach. So overall, it's just better. So when me and my coach go back and forth, I kind of have a better understanding of what he wants me to do, what he's looking for in terms of just the overall, like how it's supposed to look.
I've watched you compete the 60-meter highs indoors, obviously, and the 110s outdoors. One of my observations in watching you race, and I've probably watched you a couple dozen times now, is your second half of the race seems to be your best part. You close really well. Where a lot of guys get excited when they seem to get into the lead, and that's when they lose it. Do you sense when people are around you? Are you so focused on what you're doing and what you and coach have talked about? How does that work for you?
I think overall, you kind of have like a understanding of where people are in space just because they're there. But like you said, the goal is to kind of just focus on that next barrier in front of you. So for the most part, my goal is to focus on the barriers. And I know, like you said, historically, my second part of my race has been, world class, as you could say. So, I always kind of have a little bit of confidence, like, hey, if I'm not quite in the lead, I'm coming back. Right. So, and that's kind of why, I made the decision with my coach to go to 7 steps is, I felt like, my foot speed and my start is, just about as good as anybody in the world. It's just, I'm not doing as well as I'd like to accelerating into one and off of one. So I feel like, that 7 step may help me accelerate through one a little bit better, which will put me in a better position to accelerate through 2, 3, and 4. So I can get up to top speed earlier and then, finish that into the race.
Did the 1299 race feel different than other races?
I would say yes and no. Obviously, I knew it was fast. When I crossed the line, I was like, whoa, that was fast. And I knew it was fast during the race as well. But overall, technically, it feels the same. I mean, as a hurdler, and any hurdler watching this or listening to this will understand kind of that feeling is, we do a lot of that kind of pace, that race pace or 1299, 1280 pacing in practice, right? So I've done, where I've had under 1.0 touch times or under 0.95 touchdown times in between a hurdle and training. It's just putting it together in a race, right? So, I knew I was capable of doing that. I'm even more capable of running faster than that. It's just, actually accomplishing that in a race. And then on top of that, just being so consistent at the end of the season is super important. I ran, I think 3 or 4 times under 13:10, which was like, you keep doing that, you're consistent, you're going to have a breakthrough, especially in the hurdle event, because, it's so technical and obviously, the speed aspect's important, but, once you're clicking.
Do you, when I was watching some tapes of the 2016 Olympics, one of the things that I noticed was that was your first real time. Well, it was 80,000 people or 50,000 people in the stadium in Enginau. How did that experience go for you? Were you nervous there? Did you look up at guys have told me they look out of the stadium, they see 50, 80,000 people and they go, holy heck, and, but you've got to keep yourself back in the lane, right? With the big races, do you just have to remind yourself that this is just another race, or is there another way that you approach it?
I think the goal is to treat it like any other race. Obviously, the importance and the magnitude of it is understood by the athletes, just because, right, like it's the Olympic Games. But I think overall, I've competed at a high level in track and field for a long time now. Since I was 19 years old, I was one of the best in the world and have been. And then also playing college football, right? Like, we play in front of 50,000, 80,000, 100,000 people as well. So, I don't think that the actual like pressure from the stadium or fans is what like the pressure I feel is just, pressure just to perform well in general. Same amount of pressure I have every time I go out to race, regardless of the field. And I think, as I've gotten older and as I've gotten more opportunities to run in high caliber meets, it's getting easier and easier to just kind of like relax. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess like that first Olympics is definitely the toughest one in terms of just like, feeling pressure and, being nervous for the race itself.
In your second Olympics, it was in the middle of a pandemic, and pretty much the only people in the stands were some of the fellow athletes and coaches and some media. What was that experience like?
It was interesting, just because it was during the pandemic and, there's a lot of protocols we had to follow, but it felt pretty normal in terms of the competition, other than there being no fans. But, the magnitude of the Olympic Games is kind of understood, like I said, by all the athletes and we treat it that way, and, coaches and support staff and everything as well. So it felt pretty normal in terms of the competition. Obviously, my family didn't get to go. We didn't get to explore Tokyo, and there was no fans in the stadium. But That being said, I'm pretty happy that the Olympics did go through, because it could have very well just been postponed even longer or canceled, right? Which would have been, kind of sucky.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to Brophy College Prep in Phoenix.
Really? Okay. Okay.
Yep.
I went to Bellarmine in San Jose, and I had a couple buddies who taught at Brophy back in the
Oh, okay.
80s and 90s.
Yeah.
So, did you pick up, were you doing football and the hurdles in high school?
Yeah. So I played football pretty much since I've been 5 years old.
Wow.
I started running track probably about third grade, fourth grade. So maybe like 11, 10, 11. And then I was just a sprinter, 100, 200, 400, doing pretty well. And then when I got to high school, my high school coach, Tim O'Neill, was like, hey, you're pretty good at the sprints. You're one of the best ones in the state, but I think you could be pretty good at the hurdles as well. The event in Arizona at the time wasn't super stacked. So it was a good opportunity for me to score points and or win. And I remember, spending about 4 weeks on practicing hurdling my sophomore year. And I ended up, my first meet I ran like 15.4.
Wow.
My second meet I ran like 15 flat, and then I qualified for state. And then I ran like 14.40 in the first round of state, and then ran 13.90 in the final. Right. So a pretty quick progression in terms of learning how to hurdle over, 4 to 6 weeks. And so I was like, okay, I could do this. And then the next year, like this first meet of the season, I broke the Arizona State record, ran like 13.60. So I was like, okay, I'll do this as well, even though I still sprinted.
Sure. Do you still like the sprints?
Yeah, I do. Something I really enjoy. One of my favorite events is the 200 meters. And as a pro, I'm always trying to get faster and, develop my sprint speed. And it's kind of hard to keep progress, because the last time I ran, 100 meters healthy was in 2018. I ran 10:26, right? So, I'd like to say I'm faster now, but I just haven't done, a lot of hundreds, and I haven't done a lot of prep for it too, because although it's just a straight sprint, there is a little bit of a difference between the 100-meter start and the hurdle start that takes a little bit of like rewiring of the brain, because, in the hurdles, you're up tall so quickly, as opposed to in the 100, there is a true drive phase and acceleration phase. But I think I'm running the 100 at Mount Sac, so we'll see where I'm at.
Cool. Yeah, Ronaldo Maya told me that the difference between the 100 and the hurdles, the timing, and if guys are like, I remember watching Gail Devers doing the 100 and then doing the hurdles, and I would talk to her a little bit about it, and that's why she said she loved the rounds, because a couple rounds really got her focused. Do you appreciate the value of rounds in a competition for you with the hurdles? Does that help you out?
Yeah, for sure. I think rounds for the hurdlers are going to be helpful in general, just to kind of get you clicking and kind of get that rhythm going, especially in the 110 event, right? It's not so taxing physically. I mean, obviously you're running full speed, but it's not like we're running repeat 400s or repeat 800 rounds, right? So I think it is helpful for sure, like, at a major competition or something like that, to run a couple rounds over a couple days as well, and kind of feel sharp.
Did you have any what was the biggest challenge when you went to the University of Oregon and went to college hurdles? Was there a challenge for you going from the high school event to the college event?
I wouldn't say it's a challenge. I think it's a definite learning curve. With the height itself, I didn't really struggle with the actual height, maneuvering the hurdle. The where I kind of struggled was with, takeoff distance from the hurdle, right? Once the hurdle goes higher, you got to take off further away to have that same parabola, right? So if it's shorter, you can take off closer. So you can get away with not being as technical over 39. So when I got to 42s, I'm like, okay, I got to clean up a little bit more technically, and I got to be more consistently taking off further away from the hurdle, which I figured out over that season. Obviously, I ran 13-16 and won NCAAs and USAs as a freshman in college, but a definite learning curve.
What has been the biggest challenge for you going from a college athlete to a professional athlete?
The biggest challenge, I would say, is really just finding the right programming and mixture of, training, lifting, physical therapy, massage therapy. Because in college, especially me playing college football as well, I was so busy. Everything was kind of just like structured out for me, right? I go to class, track practice, or, I go to football practice and class, then track practice and class, and then meetings, and then massage or whatever, and go to bed, right? So regimented. When you become a pro, you have to figure all this stuff out yourself. You have to find a massage therapist, you have to find a physiotherapist, and decide where you're going to lift. If you have a facility that has weights, decide on the program that you're going to do in terms of, lifting. Same thing with your coach. I moved coaches, went back to Phoenix for a couple of years, and kind of went on a program that was with what I did more similar in high school, which worked for me in high school. And I realized after a couple of years that it might be a little bit too much in terms of volume for how long the pro season is, right? In high school, for me, from February to May, right? It's only 4 months. So you can get away with a lot of volume. You have a lot of racing. That's great. And when I was a pro, we'd start training in October, November. And I felt really good early in the season, indoors, and then March and April. And then by May, I was starting to get a little banged up, right? Like some injuries, some just, overuse stuff, right? Calves, hamstrings, stuff like that. And, that's kind of the frustrating thing is like, I did like the program and I trusted the program in general. I just couldn't stay healthy, in 2018 and 2019. That's what kind of put me at like a weird intersection in my career where I decided to go back and train with my college coach and move to Maryland, move across country and kind of do the same program I did in college.
There's been some articles in the paper about you going back to football or considering football again. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I guess that's always been the goal of mine. After the 2016 Olympics, I returned to play at Oregon and, unfortunately had a second knee injury against Nebraska on the second or third game of the year. And, at that time I decided, hey, I'm just going to focus on track for a bit. I had the opportunity to sign a contract with Nike and make a living doing it. So I said, hey, let me just focus on this, see where it can take me. I did it for the it's supposed to be for 4 years. Now it's been 5 because of the postponement of the Olympics. And, now I'm ready to get back into football, into the swing of things. I still think, I had the talent, I played well. I was a great athlete, in college, and I still believe I could do the same things I did, if not better, just because, physically I'm stronger, I'm faster, more mentally sharp as an older elite athlete, right? I know how to take care of my body. I know, what's important in terms of training. And, I've already done, competed in a sport at a high level. So I understand what it takes in order to be successful. So, my goal is to play this next coming season. So we're just trying to decide, what the best route is for me in terms of, making a team, getting on the team, signing a contract and all that stuff. So it's kind of a whirlwind the last few days, just because I did the pro day on Friday, which kind of announced my return to football. And it's been 4 days since then. So now I've been, kind of trying to navigate and figure out what the next step is for that.
And you were happy with how the pro day went?
Yeah, overall, I think I was pretty happy. It's difficult when you're, splitting time between track and football. I was focused on, U.S. indoors and indoor championships until, after USA's. So I had about, 4 weeks of prep, which is hard too, because I'm living in Maryland, I don't have a lot of people to throw footballs to me and run routes and stuff. So, I was doing a lot of stuff on my own and, I think I should have practiced the drills maybe a little bit more, like the shuttle and the L cone drill, and, spend a little bit more time on the 40, but overall I didn't really worry too much because, I'm a fast guy. I knew I was going to run fast in the 40. And, I'm a good athlete. So I just had, confidence that I could go out there and just compete. And, overall, I think I did a pretty good job, considering, just how much time I've done it in the last couple of weeks. And hopefully, with the few months, 3-4 months until this football season, I'll spend a lot more time doing it.
Talk to me about workouts. Do you have a workout that you do that tells you that you're ready to race?
Um, yeah, I guess like everybody does. There's like just indicators in specific sessions. We do like a 12 hurdle, 10 hurdle or 12 hurdle session, a reduced distance to kind of mimic, what it's going to feel like on a race day. And usually if I get, touchdowns into the 9.0s, close to 9 flat or even 0.93, I feel pretty confident. I'm ready to run quickly. And then I do, and that's kind of interesting too. I did that workout for the first time, like March, I don't even know, maybe March 15th. And I actually ran, my touchdowns were the fastest I've ever done. It was the first time I did the workout of the year. So not that that's a great, the number one indicator with how ready I am to go, right? I could have just been feeling really good that day, whatever. But it is a good indicator that I'm, in the right trajectory to run fast. And then, there's a couple sprint indicators that I use. We keep track year over year with like a flying 30, right? Whenever I start to run close to 0.270s and even dip into the 0.26s for, a flying 30, I know my foot speed's there. And then for the 120, I do a 120-meter run test, like at close to full speed. And if I start getting under 12 seconds consistently, off of movement, I feel pretty good about, how fast I'm running. But those are all things that like, are all hand time and subjective in the sense that like, I could feel really good. And then next weekend I could feel bad and just have a bad race, which, happens.
What makes you the hurdler that you are? What is your best talent as a hurdler?
To be honest, I think overall just my ability to, I'm not going to say compete. That's not the right word for it. My ability to mimic or just make corrections, very quickly in terms of training and day over day and improving and getting better, which in turn gives me a lot of confidence. So I would say my confidence, that I can win every race that I'm in is kind of what puts me over the top in terms of that. But like physical attributes, obviously, my strength, my speed, my size is going to, put me in that category of like the ideal hurdle build, right? Like there's, if you do studies of like the last few world records, and fast hurdle times anywhere between like 5'10" and 6'2", close to like 10.0 sprint speed. And, that's, about like the perfect hurdle build, right? Because if you're too tall, I mean, you can be tall and be a great hurdler, but if you're too tall, you can have a hard time, running up on the hurdles at the end, just in terms of distance. And if you're too short, you might have a hard time maneuvering the hurdle, right? It's just going to be harder for you to get over the barrier. So there's definitely a sweet spot, and I find myself right in that sweet spot. So, it's a good attribute to have as well.
I remember interviewing Aries Merritt after the world record, and he told me that that he knew it was coming because he said in the couple races before that, his butt was right over the hurdle. So he said he was just right on form. Yeah. And then I asked him, was it a perfect race? And that's what I loved when he said, oh, no, there's things I could have improved on it. The way you talk is you're looking each day to see what kind of things you can do to be better. Can there be a perfect race? Could you run a perfect race?
I think in terms of perfect on the day, yes. So, what Aries says by that, it was like, that's the best he's ever run it. Right. And what he meant by like, there's still things that he can improve is like, all right, well, that's the best start I've had. That's the best I've been in between the hurdle. And that's the best I've been over the hurdle, but I think I can still get better. Right. Maybe I can get 200s to 500s faster in the start and be a little bit more quick, be 100th per hurdle quicker, between each barrier. And that, that kind of stuff adds up very quickly, right? You think of it in terms of 500ths of a second, not really that much time, right? So if you're 500ths faster to hurdle one and then 100th faster in between, that's 1500ths. So, that takes the world record from 1080 to 1280 to 1265 with just, small amounts of time, so that's what I think he meant by that. He's like, hey, like that was perfect. It's probably perfect in the sense that was the best he's done it, but he probably can still improve and work from there. Although it's difficult, I realized this right away, like as a pro athlete and being one of the top ranked hurdlers year over year, one, it's hard to win in this, it's just a lot of great athletes. And two, it's hard to improve, right? Because we're at such a level, we're pushing the envelope. So like, when you're pushing the envelope, things happen, injuries, fatigue and stuff like that is very close to that edge as well. So, Aries is, an example of, being consistent over a long period of time. But, when you run 1280, you're like, all right, next year I'm going to run 1270. All right, next year I'm going to run, 1260. And that's, it's a great mindset to have, but it's difficult because it's just not always going to happen, right? Like I ran 1316 as a 19-year-old. I thought, okay, when I'm 20, I'll run 13:0. When I'm 21, I'll run 1290. When I'm 22, I'll run 1280 and, break the world record. And it took me 6 years to PB from 1303 from 2016 to last year. Right. So it's just, and it's not that I was a worse athlete or a worse hurdler. It's just, I didn't quite get everything to click, had a hard time staying healthy a couple of those years. And then, overall, once I put everything together, and then it clicked pretty easily, I would say. It just took some races.
I remember talking to a group of hurdlers one time, and they were telling me that that the 110 highs doesn't get the respect it deserves. So if you were in a room full of football fans and you're trying to get them to watch the 110 hurdles, what would you tell them about the event?
I would tell them that some of the best athletes in football right now, NFL, were hurdlers. Todd Gurley, running back in the NFL, probably has the most touchdowns from the line of scrimmage since 2016. I think he still does. Was a world youth medalist in the hurdles when he was, 15, 16 years old. Marlon Humphrey, who's the starting quarterback, signed one of the biggest deals, as a cornerback in the NFL, plays for the Ravens. He was a national caliber hurdler. A lot of guys, Artie Burns, who was in the NFL for a while. A lot of great athletes do maneuver towards the hurdles just because it's another interesting avenue to learn, right? Like we're all fast sprinters. Like if I focus on the 100, I believe I could be, a 9-second 100-meter guy. That's just not that I don't want to do it. It's just I'm more interested in hurdling. That's just the event I chose and something I enjoy. But I think as a hurdler and as a great athlete, there's a lot more components to that event itself, which makes it, right, like you said, it's undervalued or underrated. But if you look at the type of athletes that compete in this event, definitely some of the greatest in the world. I mean, you look at Grant Holloway, 8-meter long jumper, 7-foot high jumper, 43-second 400-meter runner, right? And even he got beat by a Jamaican hurdler that's been one of the top in the world since 2012. So for 10 years, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like those guys are really great athletes. And Omar McLeod has run under 10 seconds in the 100 as well. And, Ronaldo Nehemiah and Greg Foster and Roger Kingdom are all like on that spectrum of past hurdlers that were great athletes. Roger Kingdom played football, and, it's just an event that takes a lot more athleticism than, the normal sprint events. I would say pole vault and the hurdles are probably some of the most, athletic athletes on the track.
Oh, you're right. All right. I'm going to give you names of 5 or 6 athletes.
Yep.
And 5 words to describe them. Okay.
5. Okay. That's going to be tough.
Okay. You just do the best you can. I'm just giving you a little bit of, I do this with the first person I did this with, who was, Sandy Morris. It was pretty funny. Okay. Grant Holloway.
Grant Holloway. He's genuine. He is obviously athletic, fast, always smiling, and just funny. He's a funny guy. Good to be around.
Omar McLeod. He's more serious. He has a chip on his shoulder for sure, which is interesting because, he's, world champion, Olympic champion, world indoor, which, has all the accolades to be the guy. And,
he definitely has a chip still, which is good characteristic to have. He's also funny and very kind and genuine, which is good. The hurdle event, the guys get along pretty well. Obviously, was trying to take each other's heads off during the race, but after the race, we're all cool.
Andrew Posey.
Oh, he's I would say underrated. Very talented hurdler. He's fast. He competes well at major championships, which is an underrated attribute to have. So he's a gamer and also very kind in the sense that, always is looking to say hello and chat you up.
Pascal Martinot-Lagarde.
Pascal. See, here's the thing. I don't know Pascal that well because I haven't talked to him much because he doesn't speak much English. But he has been nice to me. He is very animated, and you can watch the races whenever he wins something, which is important because, winning in this event is super hard. So he's animated, he's fast, and he's a veteran. He's a veteran in the sport, has been running quick since 2010, which is very important, to have longevity in this sport as well. So yeah, veteran, longevity, and, great hair.
Jared Eaton.
That's a good friend of mine. He's also very animated, but a little bit more quiet in the sense that he doesn't do a lot of talking, outside of the track. He works very hard and is very committed to the craft and is always learning and very committed to improving.
You passed. You did a good job, man. I'm impressed. Thanks. Okay, so chip on the shoulder. I'm fascinated with that comment a little bit. If I translate chip on the shoulder as having a little bit of attitude, having feel like they don't get respect, does that translate well?
I wouldn't say necessarily doesn't get respect. I think Omar McLeod is for sure respected in the event. I think what I mean by that is at one point he was the guy to beat every race. And now it seems, which is weird. It was just because he didn't make the Olympic team because of a calf injury, it kind of seems like he has disappeared off the map, which I expect for him to be back very quickly, right? Like there's no, all the hurdlers in this event haven't forgot about Omar. We're not naive to that. Maybe the fans and stuff that have been watching the sport are naive to the fact that, other than Grant Holloway and myself and Daniel Roberts and Pascal and the Jamaicans, the three Jamaicans, Ronald Levy and Hansel Parchment and Omar, those guys were all capable of running into the 12s at any time outdoors and even, pushing that world record if a season clicks, for sure.
I got a question for you. Do you know Daniel Roberts pretty well?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So I got him to laugh at the trials when I asked him, why does he wear tights all the time? It's whether it's cold weather or warm weather. Is it just part of his thing?
Did he tell you the reason why?
No, he just started laughing because he was with Grant, and I thought maybe he had hamstring issues, right? Because when I coached, I would have some of my kids because we were in a little colder weather, I'd have my kids wear half tights, right? But he didn't say why.
Well, I don't want to spoil his belt. I don't think it's a big deal. But when he was in high school, he played football.
Yeah.
And I think he had an ACL injury.
Okay. All right.
And so he wore like a knee sleeve.
Okay.
His freshman year, and then he started getting comfortable with the knee sleeve, so he just started wearing tights.
Cool.
So and now that's his
nice
thing.
Guy. He's on our list to interview, but I got him to laugh with Grant after the one of the semi at the trials, and I said, why are you in tights all the time? It's 100 degrees out. And he just started cracking up.
And I asked him that too. And that's exactly, so he gave me that answer. He's just like, hey, I just been wearing long tights for forever. I'm just comfortable, which is important. Whatever's comfortable.
Did you ever do the 400 hurdles?
I did in college. Yeah.
Like it or hate it?
I don't mind it. I believe personally I underperformed in that event based on my, athletic ability. But I just didn't spend a lot of time practicing or training for it, which, looking back, I wish I did a little bit. But, me and Jamie had come to an agreement that if I made NCAAs in the 200, I wouldn't have to run the 400 hurdle. So I focused on making NCAAs in the 200.
Have you ever done the 200 hurdles?
I haven't, but we're hoping to get one of those races this year.
Because I was hearing a little bit of chatter about that. I was just curious. Has it gone any farther yet, or is it just kind of out there as a possibility?
It hasn't gone any farther. I think, to be honest, it probably will happen at the Adidas Boost Boston games, because they do on the flat track, they do the 200. So I could see that happening. The only issue is it's a hard event because no one practices it, right? So there could be a huge advantage or disadvantage, right? Like I think Rye has an advantage because he is used to hurdling 36-inch hurdles, and he runs at 4 hurdles, and he can do both legs. I think me and Grat have an advantage because we're used to being super aggressive and having that turnover in between the hurdle. So I could see it happening, but it's kind of hard too because, those guys, Ryan and Grant, are definitely big, and I'll put myself in there, are definitely high profile names in the sport, and I would do it, but, it's harder to get them to do those things without getting paid, which, is okay because, that's how we make a living.
Sure. When I first saw you, I was watching you from the back room of an interview, and I put down on my notes that you were self-confident. And one of my buddies put down that you had you had a little bit of attitude. It seems to me that it keeps your confidence is one of the things that keeps you on game. Do you think you're a super confident athlete?
Yeah, to be honest, I think, what'd your buddy say? Say that again.
He said you had a bit of attitude, but he said it was a good thing because in the event, the comment, we were talking about hurdlers, right? And, I spent a lot of time with Ronaldo at different times, and I would ask him questions because he was, on the 49ers, and then, but he's an agent, and we'd be flying around and talking a little bit, and he knew I was a geek, so we would chat a bit about it. He told me that it's really important to have self-confidence in an event like yours. It's so competitive. And when I've watched you, like I remember watching you in Rio, you were just so relaxed in the rounds, man. And I was just kind of like going, God, this is the Olympics. And there is guys in each one of these rounds who could clobber you, but you just kept your game. Have you always been like that? Is that something you developed like in college? Is it something you and your coach talk about? How did you put that together?
I think I've always been like this, but I think it's an attribute that I developed as, my work ethic, right? Like I'm super confident in my preparation and my training and the amount of time and effort I put into doing something that I do, right? So, I joke and say like, and it's not a joke because I believe it. I believe I'm the greatest athlete in the world, right? Like I don't do the decathlon, but I believe that if I, given the time and the preparation and the ability to do it, I could play any sport that I wanted to, and do just about anything with my body and maneuver. So, that's why, playing college football at a high level and running track at a high level it's what I, kind of evolved into and gravitated to. But regardless of what I do, I believe I can be the best at it. And that's kind of what gives me my confidence. And really when I line up on the track, regardless of preparation and stuff like that, I need to be prepared because you can't fake this. But if I'm ready to go and prepared and at the top of my game, like I don't believe anybody can beat me. And that's just how it is.
Hey, Devon, you've survived 42 minutes. We're down to our last 3 questions. Okay. Am I ever going to see you compete in a decathlon?
The goal actually, yeah, eventually. I want to try to break the hurdle record in the decathlon, and awesome. to do that, you have to score over 7,000, which I think is possible. I don't think 7,000 is a good score, but I think I can accomplish that. I would love to do it at Gotsis. So if I can get that invite, maybe in an off year, like we don't have any off years in the next 4, but maybe 2026. 2026, I'll be 31, 32, and right in my athletic, my athletic prime. Just like as a mature adult male, like strong, fast, and I'll give it a try. Then I think just do one at least.
Cool. Will you do football and track and field for the next several years? Is that what you'd like to do?
I would love to do it, but I am not naive to the fact that this transition back into football may take more time and effort than, than I would have to put into track. Right. So I'm not naive to the fact that once I do start playing football, if I want to compete at the level that I believe I can compete at, I'm going to need to spend some time and focus. And that's just what I believe in terms of me being an athlete. Best case scenario would be play football season, win the Super Bowl February 15th every year. And then, take a couple of weeks off, get back with my coach in February, March, start training again, March, April, May, and get ready for outdoors and compete for, a bit, probably run at the U.S. championships and maybe a couple European meets and the world champs with the Olympic Games coming up. And then after that, go back to football.
Well, this year you've got the world champs in Eugene. And in 2028, you've got the Olympics in LA. We get to see you through the Olympics in LA?
I think so. I don't think that's too much of an ask at all. I'll be 33. There's plenty of good hurdlers. Alan Johnson's one of the goats, and he ran 12.9 until he was 36 or 37.
36. I interviewed him at 5:00 in the morning after he did that one, man. And he actually called me, totally blew my mind. And we got to chat a little bit about it. It was pretty exciting. Devon, this has been awesome. I've been wanting to interview you for a long time. I've admired you, and we love watching you race. Keep doing what you do. We will have this up in the next couple of weeks, and we'll send you the info on it. But thank you again. This is Larry Eder with RunBlogRun. This is Socialing the Distance. We had Devon Allen, a 4-time U.S. champ, 2-time Olympian, 2-time world champion, world championship team member as well. Devon, great to see you. Thanks again, and good luck this spring.
I appreciate it, Larry. Good talking to you.
Thank you. Well, hello, sports fans. Larry Eder here. RunBlogRun, your favorite program of the week, Socialing the Distance. This is the Epilogue. Today we featured Devon Allen. He is a 2-time Olympian, made it to both finals in the 110 hurdles, which is no mean feat. He is a 4-time U.S. champion, 1-time indoor, 3 times outdoor, and he is also a 2-time team member of the World Championship team. He is one of the most confident athletes I've met, a graduate of Brophy Prep in Arizona, and he is also went to the University of Oregon, played football and ran track there. He is being coached by Jamie Cook, who's now the head coach at the Naval Academy, a fine institution of higher learning in Annapolis. One of the things I've always liked about Devon is his confidence, and I think that comes through in the interview. We also talked about some of his competitors. He shared some very positive thoughts about them, and he's talking about a long career, which, he's been around for a while, but he wants to compete till 2028, and we would love to see him do that. One of the big things about his races is that Devon's strong throughout, but the second half of his race is fantastic. And when a lot of American hurdlers especially led up near the end, especially hurdles 8, 9, and 10, Devon is there, and that's where he picks people off. And that's the difference between getting a medal and not getting a medal, and winning a championship and not getting a championship. The race is 110 meters, and you better be in it the entire time, all 10 hurdles, and past that 10th hurdle. And Devon gets that. He seems to be a student of the sport too, knows a lot about athletes ahead of him and, some of the great hurdlers in the past. And his confidence is really inspiring. I've always thought that about him. I remember watching him in Rio go through the rounds and how well he orchestrated going through the rounds, which is an art form. A lot of athletes, especially American athletes, seem to think, oh God, I made it to the Olympics. Well, you got to get to the final, and that's a big part of the deal. And our athletes of this generation seem to be much more trained and in tune to what's needed to do that. In watching the interview, I think that high school coaches and college coaches will really enjoy it, as will young hurdlers, and will some competitors of Devon as well. He lets you see what makes him tick. There's a very talented athlete there who's got a huge work ethic, who's in a very supportive environment with his college coach, moved from Arizona to Annapolis the last couple of years to be with his college coach, because he understood the challenges of going from a high school and college athlete to a professional athlete, whole different ball game. And now he's going into a new ball game for him, where he's going to see if he can achieve his dream in professional American football. We wish him the very best. We just want him to stay healthy. I recall talking to Ronaldo Nehemiah about it. I don't think Ronaldo would have ever given up his time with the 49ers, but it was a challenge. And getting your timing back on in the hurdles, those are all things you got to put together. But I think if anybody can do it, Devon Allen can do it. And this is Larry Eder with RunBlogRun. This is Socialing the Distance. And our athlete today was Devon Allen, two-time Olympian at the 110-meter hurdles, two-time World Championship team member at the 110-meter hurdles, NCAA champion, and University of Oregon athlete, and a Nike-sponsored athlete. Talk to you soon.